And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, live on the Philippe Matthews Show. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are around the world. I have an incredible show, an incredible guest with me today, an incredible series. Renee Mollan-Masters is the creator of You Are Smarter Than You Think. It is a learning process and modality that is absolutely amazing. I have personally taken it, and it's instantaneous. It was instantaneous for me, where I actually now know how my brain works and stores information versus long-term versus short-term. And that I now have a process where whatever I read, whatever I do in terms of a seminar, workshop, or watch something on television, or watch a DVD, or anything instructional, I have a process now that I am able to retain it 100% in long-term memory, which is exceptionally powerful. So that's my own personal testimony, and I kind of went on a tangent. But Renee Mollan-Masters, she got her master's degree in speech pathology from California State University. In 1980, she wrote Yes, They Can, a handbook for effectively parenting the disabled. And then she developed You Are Smarter Than You Think in 1987 and taught it to college students all over Southern California. In 1992, the first edition of You Are Smarter Than You Think was published. And this learning system is unbelievable. And I'm so excited to have Renee Mollan-Masters with me. How are you, my dear?
I'm fantastic. I'm glad to be here. I really am.
I'm more glad that you are here. We've been working on this for some time, and I am just ecstatic, as I told you earlier, that I went through the program, because it's a book you can and it's an online course and tutorial, and very, very intuitive, easy to maneuver through. Doesn't take a lot of time, but it's amazing how instantaneous this is. So before I go off on a tangent, which is what I normally do when I'm excited about something, tell us about You Are Smarter Than You Think. How did this start to manifest for you? I remember you telling me something that happened to you in the second grade.
Right. When I was in the second grade, my very best friend got moved to third grade, and it was devastating. And I asked her, why did that happen? And she said that the teachers told her she was smarter than the rest of us. So then we fast forward, we're in a class together in college. And this particular class is taught experientially. It's a botany class. And if we're talking about pine cones, we have pine cones in our hands. The tests are done where we walk around lab tables and look in microscopes and petri dishes and all that stuff. So after the first test, I get the highest grade in the class, which I have never gotten the highest grade in any class, and she got a C. So, and I got the A for the class and she got a C. And I thought, what happened? You know, it's like, what happened? I didn't suddenly get smart and she didn't suddenly get stupid. I mean, what happened? And I didn't know. So fast forward, I get my master's degree in speech pathology, and I'm working on another project, you know, a number of years later. And I bump into the book Frames of Mind, which was written by Dr. Howard Gardner. And I started reading this book, and he started talking about how everybody learns differently. And everybody has brain talents. And when I started reading this book, I had about 500 aha experiences, because suddenly I realized what had happened in that classroom.
Mm-hmm.
That when I was in second grade, the teacher was giving us information in a way that lined up with her brain talents,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore she accessed her native intelligence and was higher and better than the rest of us.
I like that language, native intelligence. Everyone has native intelligence, but most people don't know what that is.
We don't tap into it. When we're little tiny kids, we tap into it naturally. But then when we get into school, we abandon it. So like what happened to me in college is this teacher happened to teach in a way that lined up with my brain, and it didn't line up with hers. And all of a sudden I'm the A student and she's the C student.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about intelligence here. We're talking about how the brain functions. And unfortunately, most people are at the effect of the information coming at them because they don't know how to use their brain. They don't know how their brain works.
What I love about this work is it's a fingerprint. This is not a one system fits all. You actually, by going through this process, find out how you uniquely process information and external information coming in, and how to basically how your brain is mapped, and how to map your brain and map information that is coming in. I can't tell you that, you know, when I went through it, that I had, like you with Dr. Gardner, I had so many aha moments and epiphanies, and some of the questions that we'll get into that in subsequent shows. We're going to do this in a 4-part series, but some of the questioning that you do to pre-qualify to go into the course. I had to think back and realize, oh my God, yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, I used to do that when I was a kid. Oh yeah, I remember that. And you take all of those questions and all of that information, and you organize it in a way that I literally have almost like a visual map of my brain, and I am now able to retain large amounts of information almost instantaneously. It's kind of scary in a little bit when you first do it. You kind of feel freaky about it because you're like, I remember that. How do I remember that? I know this. How do I know this? Holy cow. Talk to us about some of the pathways of learning in this unique process.
Well, information gets in basically 3 different ways. I mean, we deal with it 3 different ways. It either goes to short-term memory, it either goes to long-term memory, or it doesn't get in at all. Okay? And a lot of us have experienced that when we're sitting listening to a lecture, we don't get a thing that's being said. Or somebody, I have a great story. This guy was in one of my workshops, and he said, you know, I have to laugh. He said, my wife calls me up at work and she asks me to pick up a half a gallon of milk. And I have every intention to do that. But I get home and I haven't gotten the milk. And the reason, what we found out, is that he needed to do something in order to retain that information. In order to get it in. So once he started doing that, he would pick up the milk on the way home. He wouldn't forget. But if you don't know how to use your mechanism, you're kind of walking around that life with a bag over your head.
It's interesting to use that language because you know, it's almost like you're walking dead in a sense and don't even know
it. Exactly. You don't.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Everybody's had the experience of trying to learn something, and they have to go over it and 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 over it.
Right.
And then maybe it gets in, and then maybe you'll remember it for the test, and then it's gone. We've all had that experience. Mm-hmm. Okay. We've also had the experience where, for some crazy reason, we present ourselves with a piece of information, it gets in, and it starts associating with everything that you know about that piece of information. And you go, how did I do that? And it's
Mm-hmm.
instantaneous,
Mm-hmm.
almost. That is when you are using one of your strong neural pathways. I like to talk about them as 8-lane freeways.
Mm.
And when information hops onto an 8-lane freeway, it'll go directly into long-term memory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the trick is to figure out, where are your 8-lane freeways? And most people, that we don't know where they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever taught you this. This is more than right brain, left brain. It's much deeper than that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What I what I experienced with this work, with this process, you are smarter than you think. Um, it reminded me of, and I think people can relate to this. If you ever had a song that you hear, even if it's for a split second, and then for the entire damn day, you find yourself humming it, singing it at the water cooler, driving, and you cannot get the song out of your head. That is what this is like for me, in terms of when the information goes into that long-term memory. I mean, it's like it's in there. And it's a file cabinet that I can access at any time, and it's right there, and it's instantaneous. It's absolutely amazing. Is that analogy kind of what we're talking about and what we're dealing with here, when we go into something that is instantly in long-term memory that we can instantly bring back up?
Absolutely. When it's in there, see what happens when information gets into long-term memory. We've just learned this in the last couple of years. There's a chemical reaction that takes place, and that chemical reaction changes you, and it associates with everything. Like, let's say you put the word blue in there. Everything that's blue, you associate with that information, everything that you know about the color blue.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have to write an essay question, or you have to take a test, you have volumes of information. Kids that have done this program tell me that when they learn the old way and it goes into short-term memory and they have an essay test, they can write maybe a sentence. But when they use this program and it goes into long-term memory, they can write several pages. That's
Wow.
the difference.
Wow. And like I said, we're going to be doing this in a series, but I do want to get into some of the nuts and bolts of it. But you have, when I first came to know of you, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago or so, there were some amazing stories and testimonials from young people, you know, from all different economic levels and academic levels, and it was amazing, because a lot of people, especially kids, because of self-esteem issues, insecurities, nobody wants to be held back in school. Nobody wants to be associated as being slow or you know, educably, mentally retarded, or whatever those terms are. And what I noticed with the work that you've done and the lives that you have touched, in a way, you have given these, for the people who are fully grown, you've given them their life back. And for the kids, you've given them a future.
Absolutely. I mean, when I read Dr. Gardner's work, it was like my self-esteem went from there was this little voice inside of me that says, somebody's going to find out that I'm not as smart as they think I am, and I'm really kind of a fake. But what I realized from reading Dr. Gardner's work, that, oh my gosh, I am smart.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It wasn't a fluke. And I think that a lot of people walk around thinking that they don't have what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
reason they feel that way is they don't know how to access it. They're functioning with the worst part of themselves
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
instead of the best part of themselves.
And I would assume that's very self-defeating, because you know, when you think about what you do when that happens, when that first event occurs where you feel like, okay, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, so you start minimizing certain aspects and areas of your life, minimizing relationships, minimizing opportunities, minimizing experiences, and not taking those leaps forward because you think that you're inadequate, and you're not. It's just that you've never learned how to use your unique blueprint or fingerprint of your brain, and how your brain maps those 8 lanes of information for long-term memory. And I could, you know, it's like living in a hell for most of your life, until one day somebody comes in and turns on the light, and it's like, whoa, what just happened? Uh, you know, and I would assume, because in my opinion, this work is not just life changing, but it's career changing, because you could end up uh, becoming that doctor, becoming that attorney, becoming whatever engineer, whatever high functioning career or job, or becoming that author, or becoming that writer, whatever it is that you were afraid of because you said, oh, I can't read it that well, I can't retain it that well. It has nothing to do with that. Talk to us about this part about illiteracy and you are smarter than you think, because it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're not able to read well, that this doesn't work. It does.
It does. And it's one of the reasons that we created the online training is that it's most people that are struggling in school don't read really well. So we created an online training where you don't have to read.
Nice.
You know, it's done with video and training and whatever. It's a non-reading kind of course.
And you're kind of right there with us, because you have the visual, to have your own video. You're talking to us. Some is audio as you walk us through it. And even if there is sections where you have to read, you can have the audio piece turned on and you read with us. It was amazing. It's fucking believable. I love it. I mean, there's no stone left unturned on this. It's that there's no brain that will be left behind, literally, with this work. When you were telling a story about an athlete, young boy, and I think this is palpable and applicable to our conversation, because you know a lot of athletes say, "Oh, that's the dumb jock." Yeah, that's not true. That's not true. Just because you excel in sports, there's a certain level of genius that you have as a result of that sport, which a lot of people don't know, that you can use to learn and retain anything.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was first developing this program, I did workshops in my home, and there was this young man. He was, you know, I knew he was struggling and he looked down in the dumps. So at the break, I went over to talk to him, and I noticed he was reading Sports Illustrated. And he told me that he had flunked his freshman year of high school, and his mom and dad held him back, and he's redoing his freshman year again, and he was still flunking. And he was really, really discouraged, which you can understand.
Sure, rightfully so, sure.
So I really paid attention to him. We got him set up, and what he was supposed to do is he was going to take notes on what he wanted to learn, because he was visual, and he was going to organize it in a sequential outline format because he was logical. And because he was body kinesthetic, he loved soccer. He was going to kick his soccer ball against the side of the house while he read through his notes. And he called me back about 10 days later, and he said, I took a test and I got an A. And he says, it's the first A I have ever gotten.
Wow.
And then later found out he was doing fine. Now, the thing that I want to say to your viewers is that don't just jump and do that yourself. Don't go, take notes and outline it and kick your soccer ball. It may not work for you.
Right, right. That might not be your modality and how your brain is mapped.
That's how his brain worked, and you have a unique way that your brain works.
Right, right.
So it's not about doing it like somebody else, which students tend to do.
Sure, sure. And that's why I said this is not a one process fits all. This work, because the work that I do. I love interviewing the most brilliant minds on the planet Earth, and you being one of them. And I love having these conversations. I love learning, and I love the way in which I have been able to do it and to earn a living doing it. But what I like about this is, regardless of where you are or what you have thought about yourself, what level of esteem you have or do not have, this actually works. It just doesn't matter what you have gone through in your life, what you are currently going through in your life. This will change your life immediately, and learn how to, I mean, just imagine that you look at a textbook and your eyes just completely go blurry, like mine does, right? So I look at a textbook and it's like, oh God. And you start getting sleepy. Those are all kind of signs, it's like, okay, I'm having a hard time focusing and concentrating. What's going on? And it's just so arduous and hard. And then you take this work and you do this work, and then all of a sudden you look at that textbook. It's not intimidating anymore. It's not blurred anymore. All of the nuances of that textbook and all of whatever it is that you need to gain from that or glean from that textbook becomes instantaneous and visceral in your long-term memory. It's a spooky feeling, because you think, oh my God, I could literally be turned into a genius if I chose to do so. That's how powerful this is for me.
You are a genius, and you just don't know it.
Right. That's why you say you're smarter than you think.
Exactly. And I mean, that's why I chose that name, because it's true. It's like we're sitting here discounting who we are. We think that we don't have the ability that we really have. We do have ability that we don't have access to, because we don't know how to use this mechanism. And it's like we don't know how to be our own selves. And so all this life is coming at us, and we're hitting, participating with it the best we can. But if you don't know how you function and what's important to you and how your brain works, you're totally at the effect. You're at the effect of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is so true. And so powerful, because, everybody has had the experience, hopefully in life, that there was something that they retained positively, and it was life changing for them. It was like, oh, I got it. I remember when I used to speak in high school and grade schools, there was a kid, I remember, never forget this. I forgot what I was talking to him about. I was doing a piece on, I think it was about self-esteem or something. And I assumed that everything was matching up. Of course, I didn't have the language or the process of knowing this work. But the kid literally ran down the hall, jumping up and down, saying, I got it, I got it. And we've all had that experience in some shape or form or fashion. We might not have jumped up and down about it, but it was like like you said, there's something chemical that happens in the brain. It's almost like a euphoria when you
The,
retain some information and are able to not just regurgitate it. And I really want to bring this point across, because when we look at our modern day school system, it's a lot about regurgitation, remembering and regurgitate, but you don't necessarily learn it. And that's the difference with this, is that you learn it, so it's not something that you just repeat in that moment and forget about it. This is something that will stay with you for the rest of your life, and you will be able to pull it up as if it was the first time that you retained it. Talk to us about that aspect of this work and how that chemistry in the brain works, where it's almost like a serotonin or euphoria that happens when information, you get it and it's retained, and it's like you have that aha moment.
exactly. And that's what's that aha moment. If it's motored out, it's just like that kid running down the hall saying, wow, I got it, I got it, I got it. And when I was reading Dr. Gardner's book, it was like, I get this, I get this, I get this.
Right.
Now I really get this. And it's such a great feeling. And most of our kids today don't even know what that feeling is. And what happens is that there's a chemical reaction that takes place that probably, I don't know what happens actually, but that's what gives us that aha experience. And it changes you. When you're in a classroom and you have learned something that you never considered before, it changes you. It adds to the depth of who you are. And I worry about our kids today because they're not getting that depth of learning and understanding to be able to bring to the table as adults.
Absolutely.
In the world.
Absolutely. This is something, ladies and gentlemen, that Renee and I have had countless conversations about this, and academically, we're not number one in the world, not even close, unfortunately. And imagine that you've spent tens of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of hours, either for yourself or for your child, to learn how to learn, when you can basically spend an hour, and if you do it leisurely, maybe 2 hours of your time, going through You Are Smarter Than You Think, online process or the book, whichever you wish to do. I prefer the online for most. And after that, like with the kid, after 10 days later, he got his first A. Imagine what that would feel like, because I shared this with you off in the green room offline, but I've shared it on my show. I was labeled ADD, ADHD, was in special ed, all of these things. And so, yeah, you develop a complex thinking that something's wrong with you. In my opinion, I don't believe ADD or ADHD really exist. I think it's just that those brains process differently. And if they took You Are Smarter Than You Think, they would not have ADD, or if they did have ADD or ADHD, it would probably mean they would go into a genius class.
Well, at the University of Sacramento, for about 10 years, they took kids that were in the special ed program, gave them You're Smarter Than You Think program, and many of those kids were then sent into the normal classroom. They didn't need special ed anymore. They were mislabeled. A lot of special ed kids, I probably would have been labeled special ed, but at that time, they didn't have it.
It didn't exist, sure.
But the truth is, I'm not special ed. I just learn differently. I'm not linguistic logical, I'm spatial.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, it's a sad situation that we have our young people not even knowing that learning is something amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They have lost their curiosity. They have lost their wonderment
Mm-hmm. Their will to learn.
because it's all about rote memorization, trying to get
Mm-hmm.
something that so they can pass the test,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so that they can qualify or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Um, this is really a game changer academically. I for whatever reason, this just has to be. If it's not in every school, it needs to be with every parent. It needs to be with every teacher, and it needs to be with every child. Um,
Can I stop you?
okay, stop me.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. This program is about inspiring and empowering the student. Okay? Teachers are not interested in it, generally speaking, and we haven't gotten to a lot of parents. But the truth is, this is empowering the student. And so it's the student that we want to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if they're in college, high school, elementary school, they could be taking a certification, they could be going through nursing, they could be in law school, they could be in medical school, they could be in, a plumber getting a certification test that he has to take, whoever. This is about empowering the learner.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not about the teacher. It's not about the school. It's really not about the parent. It's about the student.
I like that because what you're saying is about the individual.
It
So this
is,
is not something where somebody has to be in the room with you. You don't have to sit in the class to do it. This is something that you can do in the comfort of your own home, in the privacy of your own space, whatever that looks like, and come out on the other side being smarter than you ever had dreamed imagine.
absolutely. And for some reason, and I don't know what the reason is, teachers, administrators have a fear that if you give the student the power, they lose their importance. And
Oh, interesting. Wow. Okay.
that isn't the truth.
That's insane, actually.
It's insane.
Yeah, that goes against the entire philosophy of teaching.
It's insane. The teacher's job is to inspire. It's the student's job to know how to learn. But unfortunately, that's where we are today. So this is about inspiring the individual learner. It's giving them the power. It's putting the staff in their hands so that they can get an A on any test and do it faster than they've ever done it before.
You know, the testimonials keep coming in again and again and again. Can you share with us, some of the other, after a while, I hate to say that it gets mundane. That how many lives have you saved today, Renee? How many brains have you saved today? Oh well, probably about 4,000. It is. Oh well, But I know there are some stories in there that stand out even more than others, even though there are just so many. And we talked about the kid, the sports kid. Talk to us about someone who is going to college.
Okay.
And they're scared to death because they just barely made it through. and they're going into this completely new experience, and they know that the work is going to get really, really hard and really, really serious. And I won't say hard, because it's not necessarily hard once your brain opens up, but they don't know that. Walk us through that. Give us a story. Walk us through that process.
I have two stories. First story, there was a student. I got called by an instructor from a college that I'd been working with. And there was a student that had been an LPN. And she wanted to get into the nursing program. And in order to get into the nursing program, you have to take an entrance exam. So she had taken the entrance exam several times and had flunked it. And this instructor was concerned because she had talked to her boss at work and had found out she was really good at her job. So she knew she would probably make a great nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So she called me up and she said, Renee, would you work with her? And I said, okay, I'll do it. So she came over and I took her through the program. And we figured out where her strengths were. And I told her exactly what she was to do to study for the entrance exam. So about 2 weeks later, I get a call from her. She is so ecstatic. I can hardly understand what she's saying. She's so excited. She not only passed the entrance exam, but she got the highest grade that anybody had ever gotten.
Wow. Wow.
So she went from flunking it several times to number one.
Amazing. Amazing.
I have a school in Wisconsin that is using our program for over 10 years. And they have a business program which is accelerated, and they have the local businesses send their people to their program to get advanced degrees. Now, these are people that are working 40-hour weeks, sometimes more. They come to school to get a degree. They're in an accelerated program. And what I have been told is that the reason the CEOs from these companies are sending it to that school is because of the You're Smarter Than You Think program. It makes it possible for them to be not only successful, but they are able to take what they've learned and apply it at work.
Powerful. That's the difference between short-term and long-term, is that
that's the difference.
You can apply it versus just regurgitate it or a portion of it. When you can apply it, that means you have learned it, that it's part of your neurobiology.
Exactly. That's a really good way of saying it. It's a part of your neurobiology. Absolutely, it is. It is.
Take us back a bit, if you could, Renee. With Dr. Howard Gardner's work, how did you take his work and put it on steroids? I mean, you really did. I mean, you took his work, and it was great because it was obviously an aha moment. You said you had 500 aha moments, right? So I'm obviously able to, because this is part of my the way that I learn. I can pretty much retain everything that you said earlier, right? So you said you had 500 aha moments reading this book. How did you take that book and put it into this that is literally, in my opinion, on steroids? Is learning on steroids?
I was so on fire after reading his book. And interestingly, I had a substitute job in a psych class the next 2 days. And I called the instructor up and I said, look, I just read this and I want to do something in the classroom with it. Would you be okay? He says, oh, good, do it. So I went and I told him about frames of mind, and I had it. I mean, I understood it. I knew what they were supposed to do. So I gave him kind of a test in the classroom, okay? And I said, okay, now I want you to go home and use some of this stuff. And then the next class period, I want you to report how things went. So, and because I understood it at such a deep level, I knew exactly how they were to apply it and to use it. I mean, I just understood it. So I was walking across campus like it was the next day, and I wasn't going to have the class until the following day, but I was walking across campus, and this girl came up behind me and grabbed me, scared me to death. And she said, "Randy, you won't believe what happened." And I said, "Okay, I want to know." She was musical and auditory and logical. That's what we figured. She happened to be able to play the piano without thinking. So she had an anatomy and physiology test, which is awful. You know, you have to learn all kinds of stuff. She took all this stuff she had to learn, put it on a tape player for her auditory, plugged herself in to the tape player, and sat down, listened to it while she played the piano. Okay? One time through, she went to her mom and said, "Okay, Mom, I want you to test me on this material, see if I know it." She knew it cold. She didn't do anything else, nothing. She went in, took the test, aced it.
Wow. That is just badass to me. I just love that. I just absolutely love that. And so this is the beginning of, like, when you said, "Okay, I've got something here. Wait a minute. Let's take this to the next level."
Then the next day after that, I went to class, and several of the kids had tried it. One guy had, he helped me with a really great piece of information that I didn't know. He said, "I hate reading my textbook." And he said, "I figured out why. It's because they have this heading that says psychologists. And you start reading, and they talk about what is psychology, where it began, you know, all this other junk, except about psychologists." And he says they don't start talking about psychologists until 3/4 of a way down. And he said, now I'm outlining my textbook and reorganizing it so it's in logical, sequential fashion. And as I do it, I remember it.
Wow.
I had no idea that well, it makes sense. Textbooks are written by linguistic people, and for the logical person and for the spatial person, it drives us absolutely nuts.
Completely.
It's a nutty experience.
Completely.
It's like, you want me to read this? All right, I'll do it, but I won't get anything. You know, it just is. So after I had those two experiences, I thought, you know, I really have something here. And my husband was a psychologist, and we sat down and talked about it. And he said, "You know, I think you've really got something. Why don't you start doing some workshops in the home?" So I formalized it, kind of put my pieces together. And then I began having people in the home, and that helped me to further refine it. And then finally in 82, I finally put it in book form.
Okay.
And we have three different, we have three different editions, but I've always, from the very beginning, as soon as computers were addressed or brought into being, I always wanted this to be a computer program. And I finally got it to happen a few years ago. So that's for the online thing. I really think that's the best.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
That's my 4th edition.
I agree. And I know we got to let you go because we're going to have you on for a series for this. But for those of you who have any level of anxiety towards learning, towards reading, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I hate reading, Philippe. I don't know if I'm going to," you know, they say readers are leaders. it's like, well, you don't necessarily have to read. This gives you a process of how your brain actually processes information. So you don't have to, you can become book learned and learn it, but you don't have to necessarily, quote unquote, be a reader. Talk about taking away the anxiety of learning and reading. If you have a stack of books, like I have a stack of books, and I have there's no such thing as a stack of Kindles, but I've got a stack of ebooks that I've got to go through all the time. And this has allowed me to go through amazing amounts of information just to produce these shows, and do it over a period of years, and you know, hopefully, I think, do it well. Imagine what you're able to do. So that being said, Renee, I know we're going to, this is part of a series. What can, because I really want to start getting into some of the nuts and bolts of some of the language that you've used earlier in the program, in terms of spatial, in terms of linguistics, in terms of auditory, what those kind of things mean to people, and go into these 8 lanes. What can we expect moving forward in our subsequent shows?
Well, what we want to try and do is to help the viewer to be comfortable with the idea that they can learn how they learn, that it's something that is a reality. And so basically what we're doing is like peeling an orange, and we're taking different layers off. And so next time we're going to talk about the difference between long-term and short-term memory. And this is really important to know. You know, it's we're losing an understanding about that. And and then we'll be going into the specifics of how this program actually works, the reception, reorganization, and retention area, which is a new way to actually look at how to use your brain and how to interface with what you're trying to learn.
Incredible. Incredible.
The last show, we're going to actually bring on people from all over the country who have used the program, teachers and students, to talk and to share their experiences.
Oh, this is amazing. This is incredible. I know that people can get the link below, but I want you to verbalize it for the people. How can people get in contact with you and take this course?
They go to youaresmarterthanyouthink.com. You write it all out. youaresmarterthanyouthink.com. And everything is there. You can get the book, you can get the online training. I suggest you do the online. It's 2 hours. It takes 2 hours, and when you're done, you have it to use.
Love it. Love it. Renee Mollan-Masters, you are truly the epitome of your last name. You are a master.
Thank you.
And I'm so blessed. I am so blessed to know you and have you a part of my life, and to be able to share you with the world. Oh, it's incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stick around in the green room as I sign off, and we'll get ready to prepare for the next show. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, do me a favor and share this with someone you care about, somebody you know that might have been labeled with a learning disorder or even a learning disability. This will help them. And share it, use it, talk about it, and then we'll see you the next time, next week, the same bat place, same bat channel, on the Philippe Matthews Show Live. Take care, everybody.